I made all of the ancient magical relics on our earth appear right in front of Zatanna Zatara, and she said, how did you do that? And I said, I am powerful enough to do anything I want to do, and then I made myself very attractive by increasing my sexual pheromones, and I asked Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy, is everything ready? And they said yes, and I said, good, thanks girls, and then I kissed them both and I said, I will see you later, and then I said to Zatanna Zatara that I want to take you on a fun date, how does that sound? And she asked, what are you doing to me? And I said, I am doing nothing to me, and then I made the suggestion and I implanted it in her mind, and I said I can have sex with any woman for days and I have no refractory period, which means I don't have to stop having sex to rest. Do you know what that means? It pretty means that I could sexually satisfy any woman. Oh, and I can duplicate myself. And she said, why are you telling me this, Bruce Wayne? And I said, because I want you to go home and think about some things, like the fact I could give you anything your little heart desires. I want you to dream of me sexually and everything. I want you to dream of me every night, and then when you're ready I want you to come back to me, only then will you be ready and you know where to find me. And then she would leave, and then the next day she would return like a mad woman, and then she asked me, what did you do to me? And I said, I did nothing to you, I didn't use magic, I used my intelligence, Zatanna Zatara, and trust me, that's more than enough to overwhelm you and make you want me. And I asked, how do you feel now? And Zatanna Zatara said, I want you so bad. And I said, good, take my hand, and then I gave her a shot, and then I teleported us in my pocket dimension inside my beautiful bedroom, and then I said, in here time flows without meaning, while in the real world not a second has passed. I gave you a special serum to make you immortal and incredibly healthy. You heal much faster than ordinary humans. Now it's a super soldier serum designed to keep human beings alive indefinitely, and now I'm going to make love to you for a while. And then Zatanna Zatara ripped my clothes off, and then she started screwing me like a rabid beast. She had sex with me for many days and even years, and she said, I don't feel hungry or anything. And I said, that's because you're not hungry, your human body has something it's been missing, and that's the ability to repair itself. That's why we eat food in the first place, or didn't you know that? And I held her in my arms naked, and she was now on top of me in the cowgirl position, and I bucked my hips and member into her vagina rapidly, and she said, oh my god baby, oh my god baby. And then she came all over my member, but she didn't ejaculate, and every woman is different I suppose, and she moaned cutely with relief and pleasure. And then I gave her oral pleasure, and I said, yes baby, come in my mouth. And then she came in my mouth and I swallowed it, and then she gave me oral pleasure, and then I exploded my semen in her mouth, and then she swallowed it, and then I had sex with her in every position for many years until finally her mind broke completely, and she said, oh my god baby, I love you, and she giggled cutely, and I said, good, I am glad you feel that way because I feel the same. You said you love me and I love you, Zatanna Zatara. And I knew that she was also now pregnant, but despite all that she continued having sex with me for another 2 weeks, and it was amazing. And then I exited my pocket dimension, and then I saw Harley Quinn was pregnant again, and I said, baby, I see you're pregnant again. And then I rubbed her belly and I said, darling, this is wonderful news, and I rubbed her beautiful pale white belly, and Zatanna Zatara said, I think I'm pregnant too. And she asked, what do we do now about all this? And I said, well, you're having the baby of course, and I will help you take care of it because my children are very special, Zatanna Zatara, and it will even help your connection to magic become greater because you will be connected to my bloodline forever. Your children will be born magi with my powers, and I can magically copy myself so I can always be with you, but I want you to stay in my apartment with me and the girls if that's okay with them. And then they all agreed, and Poison Ivy said, it's a little strange being with a younger version of myself, but I like it. And I said, Poison Ivy, you're going to have to be careful around here. And she said, yes I know. And then I thought about something and I said, Pamela, what I gave you the ability to perfectly control your ability to poison people, and you could even turn it off just by commanding it at will, and you could easily deactivate your powers. And then she said, oh yes baby, I would love that. And then I shot her with my special magical powers, and I said, now you can turn off all the poison in your body with a command. And she said, poison off, and then she transformed back into a regular human with green eyes.